Hey everyone, welcome in to another daily editorial here on the KE Report. We're getting an update from Kootenay Silver, traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol KTN and on the OTC market under the symbol KOOYF. Chatting with the president and CEO, Jim McDonald. We're following up on a news release from just yesterday, August 14th. Drill results from the Columba Project in Mexico. 11 holes were released, part of the fully funded 20,000-meter drill program, focused again on the D vein. Now, I do want to just reiterate the webinar that Jim and I recorded at the beginning of this month. We'll post a link in the show notes to that webinar so you can get up to speed on the overall fundamentals of the company and this year's current drill program. Now, the big picture of that news release here, Jim, is that you have extended the strike length of the D vein to over a kilometer. This is up from 450 meters at the start of this year's drill program. We'll post the drill plan map and the long section image from that news release that shows this expansion to the southeast. Jim, take us through the importance of these drill results and even more so the fact that you still haven't found the extent of the D vein in terms of strike length to the southeast.
Yeah, that's right, Corey. So really exciting results. And several weeks ago, when we just initiated the first part of this program, before we expanded it from 5,000 meters to 20,000 meters, we made the decision that let's start stepping out pretty aggressively at 100, 200 meters at a time and find the limits, and then come back in and fill in your gaps. So we wanted to be as efficient as we could be with the drill money we have. And so one of our key advisors, Hans Smith, told us, like, look, you just step out very aggressively, find the edge. That's what you want to know. Find the scope, show the size, and then you can come back in later. And so that's exactly what we've done. So prior to this year's program, we had an area on the D vein really well defined, over 450 meters of strike length, with 50 to 75 meter step out. So what was impressive, very consistent hits in that 450 meters, close enough space drilling for it certainly inferred, maybe even indicated resource estimate when we get there. And what we found across the whole property, in fact, is that there's a very distinct grade zonation here. So when you're high up in elevation, above about 1,750 meters above sea level, when you're above that elevation on the property, you can find your vein, but you probably don't have a lot of grade. You might have absolutely no grade if you're above 1,800 meters above sea level, or you might have some anomalous silver. But as you go deeper and you start hitting that 1,650 meters above sea level, that line and deeper, now you're hitting your great grades. Now the vein is strongly developed. It's very consistent along great distances, both up and down in the vertical sense and laterally in the strike sense. So that drilling prior to this year's program was amazingly consistent hits, down to a depth of approximately 1,550 meters, and the best hole was that hole defining that depth extent. It had 9.7 meter intercept with 1,700 grams per ton silver in it, still wide open. So this year, we decided that let's get more aggressive, step out broadly, laterally along strike, going to the southeast, find the edge of this, and then that'll give us an overall scope on that D vein. Do enough drilling, come back, do enough drilling to be able to do a resource estimate at the end of this program, and then start hitting these numerous other zones that we've drilled, like the historically worked F vein, where there's already over 40 holes. Holes like a neighboring B vein that we have, where there's 4.6 meters at 1,200 grams per ton just sitting there open, yet to be defined. So there's a lot of work to do, but this D vein's been so consistent and has been providing some incredible widths in grades. That's why we're focused there. So this last drill set was another 400 meter step out from the previous announcement. So from hole 153, which we announced in May, we had a 40-meter intercept there, 183 silver, and 11 meters of that was 481 grams per ton. And the high within it was 900 grams, over 900 grams. Now this release at the same elevation as hole 153, laterally to the southeast, is over 400 meters away, and it hit an incredible 98-meter intercept with 211 grams per ton. Inside of that, the highlights are 38 meters of 358 grams per ton and 12 meters of 531. So big step out, and it's really fattened up over there. The true width we're estimating at the moment is about 45 to 50% of that drilled intercept. So it's a really wide, great grading zone. And the implication is that, well, when things open up that wide, they can add ounces very quickly. So this structure looks like it's going to be one of those key structures that are typical in a vein district. You'll get your key structures that will hold the vast majority of your ounces. And this certainly is showing itself to be one of those structures that it's got the potential to hold a lot of ounces.
Well, Jim, hats off to your exploration team for that big step out. And yeah, continue to hit at depth. It looks like you mentioned that a lot of the action really starts happening at that 1,600-meter mark and below. You had mentioned earlier that hole 125, and then you just mentioned 153, and now you've stepped out to this 164. So I guess a question I have is, do you think that you can keep pressing some more holes at depth below these holes, and then those gap areas between, let's say, 153 and 164?
Yeah, so that's exactly what we're doing. We've got one drill has filled in a few gaps here and assays pending. And now both drills are going to depth here. So we're doing two aggressive step outs to depth at the same time right now. If we hit, it will really open up the potential of not just the D vein, but the whole project, because it will show that the extent of the depth potential. So right now, the zone we are seeing grade in is approximately 300 meters in sort of vertical height. And your epithermal systems, depending what type they are, if they're low sulfidation type, it's commonly they will have a vertical height that's productive with grade of 150 to 300 meters, rule of thumb. If they're intermediate sulfidation type, they can be in excess of 700 meters in vertical depth, sometimes over a kilometer. Now, this is an intermediate sulfidation type system, we believe. It's got all the characteristics of one. And so thus far, we see 300 meters of productive vertical extent. And now we've got a couple of holes underway that are designed to carry that another 100 meters of depth, vertical depth. So let's see what happens. They're really exciting holes, because if it extends that deep, it means it's still deeper yet. And we're adding a lot of depth potential, not just here on the D vein, but across the entire project.
Jim, when we look at that drill plan map too, we also see the B vein that is just a little bit, I believe, to the north. Looks like these two veins might connect. If you keep on drilling to the southeast, are you going to be testing that potential?
Well, yeah, somewhere they converge. And we don't know. That's what it certainly looks like. And this hole 164 is near that convergence. So that's positive. And that quite often when you get different veins intersecting, they form real nice mineral zones. So maybe we're starting to see the edge of that here. More drilling is going to tell the tale. And of course, we're going to test that.
Well, Jim, another thing that you've already alluded to, but I think it's maybe worth reiterating, is some of the widths in here. Even if the estimated truth is only half of the intercept there at hole 164, if it's 98 meters, that still puts it around 45, 50 meters. And there's a chunk in there, that 38 meters at 358 grams per ton silver. I mean, these are really wide intercepts where you can really mass up some resources quickly if you're working on a resource estimate. You had mentioned, and I think you've even mentioned this in your presentations before, that comparable, some analogs when you look at Silvercrest and what they've done at Las Chispas. A lot of the resources came from one really fat vein area where there was these wide intercepts. At Vizsla Silver's Panuco project, they really masked up. It was like a sea change once they found Copala, and they had those high grades but over wide intercepts. Is that what you think this D vein could be for this project?
It's looking like it right now for sure. I mean, we got 1,000 meters of strike here, so that's a pretty substantially sized zone within a vein. And you're correct. These vein systems have those key structures, key veins that host the majority of ounces, and they make everything else work. And every vein district's somewhat different. And in some cases, it might be one key vein that carries everything else, or maybe it's two or three of them, or even more. But the vast majority of your ounces are going to be pretty concentrated, is sort of the bottom line. And two things come into play there that really make that work for a project. And one is that when you're got them in your ounces are in a concentrated area, then all your development work is in one or two spots. So your capital to develop that's a lot less. And the other thing is you're building ounces a lot quicker.
So, Jim, when it comes to that upcoming resource at the end of this drill program, as you continue to move these drills around, where do you think the most ounces are going to be added? Is it at depth? Is it along strike?
Well, we're doing both at the moment. We haven't found the edges quite yet, so it's hard to say. It's wide open to depth and it's wide open along strike. So don't yet know. I mean, it's going to be a combination of both. Then you got the width. I mean, the width is the other part of the equation in calculating the volume. So I don't have a great answer. And which structure ultimately? Well, this one's going to be one of them for sure. But after we find the edges of this particular zone on the D vein, we're going to be moving on to those other zones as well. And we could have another one of these in one of those other structures.
Well, Jim, you mentioned the expansion of the drill program. Can you give us an idea of how many holes are still left to report, or how many meters roughly are still left to report in the balance of the program as you build towards that resource?
Yeah, so this release took us to 5,100 meters of drilling out of 20,000. So we're three-quarters of the way through. And the number of holes will be dependent on how many we end up taking deeper. And so we've drilled 17 holes here, three-quarters of the way through. So 3 times that many potentially here to go as a rough estimate.
Okay. Jim, thank you very much for this update. Again, I hope everybody can reference that drill plan map as well as that long section to get a good understanding of where these drill results are from, where some of the past drilling has been done, and also listen to that webinar that was posted at the beginning of this month to get more of a company overview of Kootenay Silver. Jim, thank you very much for your time. Keep us up to date on future news.
We will. Thank you very much.